Alright, this is going on. This is happening. And I know why we do it now. It's actually very useful. Alright. I look terrible. Alright. Intros are about to be shorter. I'm getting the hang of it. And I have the spoon this time. Marvelous. Hi, hello, salutations. It's been a few months now, but as I go through everything I liked recently as a basis for this channel, we'll slowly but surely get up to present stuff. Like I want to talk about Clair Obscur recently, and I'm gathering ideas, but right now, we'll talk about Season 3 of INVINCIBLE. Season 1 remains unchallenged in many ways. While Invincible is a good show, amazing even, it struggles to reach back into these highs we were introduced to this universe through. The concept plot of Omnivance Unveil in the background after a shocking start and before a traumatizing finale left a heavy burden for the rest of the show to carry forward. Fortunately, I think, it lets itself reach a lower status in quality, which makes the series sort of realistic. And it didn't go bad from it, but it gained a few issues after Season 1. One of those is the through line. Compared to the ominous plot of Nolan from the infancy of the show, there is no real constant A-plot here. There is not a single character around whom everything is moving, not something to tie every episode and their concise plot together. This ends up creating a lack of focus. The show is disjointed, and while we understand what it's trying to tell us, having no undeniable escalation of any kind doesn't make us feel it. I think this is what is hurting Invincible so much, and obviously it's a hard task to pull off when you're adapting something with the source material that allows little flexibility. The format of comics is great for episodic structures, but seasons need to have a common thread amidst every event. Season 3 tried to deal with Mark's guilt to show us how he's slowly reevaluating his moral code, but it doesn't feel like evolution. It seems like a stagnating step, like someone hovering their foot before getting up the next third step. Mark has a beginning stage where he's bettering himself and feeling more ready than ever to deal with the threat in his own way, only for that enthusiasm to be cut short when he realizes he's dealing with a far grayer set of allies than he thought he did. He ends up allowing himself to kill when necessary by the end, bending the knee to this grey will, but in between, it's stagnant. From episode 1 to 10, it doesn't feel like any progress is made, and Mark is always moody. He comes closer and closer to killing someone with nothing to cushion the blow, but it doesn't feel like a proper escalation. It feels like tedious stages. This is actually really unfortunate because honestly, the stories are really cool. The episodes and the little plots are, for the most part, really entertaining, so when we're led to believe it's connected to the overarching plot, we actually don't really feel it. We enjoy the self-centered stuff, but it drags. We feel like we're going nowhere. And before we had the gore to distract us from momentary setbacks. But now? Is it just me or does the gore feel different? I've noticed that Season 3 is mostly sticking to gore that seems formulaic. Broken limbs with bones sticking out, damaged faces and guts. Season 1 and 2 to an extent really were shocking. Red Rush's head exploding, Darkweek morphing into a carpet, Nolan casually grabbing Nolan by the flesh of his back, Mark getting his stomach open and the teeth falling off Mark's jaw felt so creative and uniquely unnerving. Season 2 had its moment, like Rexplode fighting with a bullet through his skull and a missing hand, but Season 3 lacked anything of that nature. We got a head crush with Conquest, which I liked, Oliver puking his own teeth in a bloody mess before being close to split in half. I enjoyed those. They're from the last episode only. We got little showings of interesting gore, but it was mostly a nameless dudes, and so it didn't feel unnerving to a degree. Like the double punch flattening that Viltrumite's head. It's cool, it's creative, but it doesn't fulfill the show's usage of gore, which was supposed to show us the uneasy consequences of Mark's new lifestyle. It's more there as a staple now, honestly.
kind of like Eve and Mark to a degree.
They have good chemistry when they're friends, but they are just so bland as a couple. At least Amber was frustrating. Eve and Mark are kinda just there, talking on a rooftop about how rough Mark has it. Eve's personality took a backseat, and honestly, you know how they feel to me? They feel like a couple trying to play it safe. Always. Never giving much energy by fear of crossing a line or giving the ick to the other. They feel like they're both intimidated by their significant other to the point they restrain their personality in the hopes that they keep being likable to each other. They're forcing themselves to be as bland as possible and being as traditional as possible because they're scared of fucking up something so special it was destiny that brought them together. And honestly, this is a nice thing to explore if this was the point it's trying to make. Which it's not alluded to. I just put on the characters as sins of the writer, basically, who was the actual ones playing it so safe it's boring to watch.
Eve is much more provocative in the comics from what I've understood, and the changes made to her character are honestly great, but now it's like they doubled down on it and she lacks any punch or impact on the audience.
I have a harder print of her dad on my psyche than she could ever hope to put on me, which is near catastrophic because there's a new status quo. Mark has a personality, Eve has a personality, yet it feels as if they're not allowed to keep them when in the vicinity of one another. Conquest, on the other hand, they went full force with him.
Conquest. I don't even get a real transition.
I love the additions they made to his character from the comics, and he was a great foil for the couple that needed them to face some mountain together, and it worked well. Not a fan of the retreading on a larger scale of the train scene with the beach scene, but oh well, Conquest is so great you'll forgive anything from him. He has a presence, a way of carrying himself mid-fight that is so enjoyable and leaves a strong impression, and a thing for hearts, among other things. The cruelty on display with him is top-notch, and it was a great send-off for the season, so that Mark actually has to stoop down to their level if he ever wants to get rid of the Viltrumite threat. The fight really showed the incredible strength of both Mark and Conquest, and the little moment of character building, like Conquest actually stopping at Mark's request in case he had anything relevant to tell him, were great. I'm sure what he wanted to hear was something like,
"Okay man, I need to go all out to win this, so can we move somewhere barren?"
And instead, as soon as he saw Mark didn't have any fight in him, he just grabbed the shit out of him to continue to beat his ass.
And of course the speech he gave to Mark was unnerving as fuck. It felt so wrong to get this intimate. Now it had to be because Conquest was gonna do more than unveil his wounds, and soon enough it creeped on us that he was simply confessing as a way to free himself from a bit of that burden before killing the one who heard it. It's a fascinating way to confess, and it sure as heck was inspired.
The Invincible War felt inspired too. I love how it kinda does so much at once. In the comics it's a crossover event, so that all the heroes getting cameos have something to punch. But it also is a mighty play for Engstrom to show the world the potential evil in Mark with duplicates. Mark having to fight variants and realize how his moral compass is a valley away from theirs is a great way of outgravitating his state. It would have been believable if he made the ending season statement here, but of course, Conquest made sure he did.
This arc was a lot shorter than I anticipated. It was sold to us by comic fans as such a cool thing that I thought it would span longer, but it was only an episode. A very enjoyable episode. It felt a bit cut short, like maybe 10 more minutes would have been interesting. But Levi also sort of cut it short, so I guess it's normal to feel that way.
Speaking of Engstrom, he's missing something. He doesn't feel like a plotting villain, he felt like a surprise, sort of. We knew he was coming, but with no way of knowing what for, it wasn't pressing in any way. The performance is good, the design is leagues above what it previously wore, and his damaged psyche is a good motivation for all of this, yet he lacks a threat factor. We knew Mark wouldn't fall for his old tricks, and that he got strong enough in the meantime for anything new, so... And Mark also barely knows him? That's insane, right? They met thrice. First, Mark didn't really address him. Second, he killed him. Third, he tried to do it again. Mark isn't really invested in Engstrom, like in a narrative sense. He is bummed out about killing him for this whole season though, and honestly that was solid, but bringing him back just undid that, and it wasn't really worth it for the character overall. Standouts in character were honestly the secondary characters.
Cecil, Rex, Rudy, they all showed a great intriguing plot that was interesting to follow, just like Donald did last season. They felt alive beyond the scope of the story, and since this story is much not existed at all, it was a welcome treat. You could have used more time on Debbie and Thomas. I kinda loved them. I love how lovingly boring their relationship is. I want to see more of them. As always, the character drama is the highlight of Invincible. Can't wait to see how Cecil is gonna get himself out of this whole situation, honestly. As I've said, Mark is in a really weird place this season. I don't find him particularly likable because he mostly goes over the same character beat a few times and then gets dull the second time around.
And also, his decision to stay with Eve during the Invincible War was not focused up nearly enough. It felt justified but not right, and left a lot of us frustrated with Mark's current headspace. I hope he's going to sound more confident in his decisions next time around, because now it's more that he's rash. I wanna say Invincible is a great parody. It doesn't feel like a parody most of the time, but it does such a creative job at picking comic book tropes and making them interesting again. Traveling into the future, they made that into a short episode with honestly an intriguing premise. I loved it. The multiverse too, it honestly handles it so well. The mere idea of making Mark the exception in an ocean of evil Marks is a gamble, but it also encapsulates the theme of the show so well. I hope we see more of these silly concepts get the Invincible spin in the future, honestly.
What I'd like to see is less stagnant Oliver, frankly. It can be interesting, and I like the depiction of a child with superpowers it's trying to achieve, and it succeeds mostly, but it makes a few of its interactions a bit redundant, on the unhinged parts of him at least. It feels like a few scenes kinda just play twice in different contexts, and if it's meant to be perceived as stubbornness, it's not making a good job at showing it. Omnikid was a lot more present than Omni-Man. I don't mind Omni-Man not being there for much with Alan. The only thing with this material, seeing them more would feel forced. They're here just the right amount for what they have to achieve. Also, Battle Beast is reintroduced here. Wow, didn't expect to love him so much. Very fun, and I can't wait to see how he's gonna force the story to adapt to his needs going forward.
Also, they're doing something new again. You know, the thing that made season 1 so great? Adding stuff to the material? Yeah, they're doing it again with Damien Dogblood, and I'm intrigued to say the least. Honestly, for next season, you can have my 2 cents on it. I'm probably wrong, but I feel like it's going to be a filler season. Let me talk you through this. This is going to be what can only be described as a filler arc with a demon realm, but I think it's going to be broader than that. Maybe because of the length of the next canon arc being a bit iffy to adapt in one season, too short or too long. I wouldn't be surprised if they set that aside to tell us a new story in the meantime, so that we may have continuations and show exclusive plot threads. That's my prediction. Mostly filler stuff, which I'd be excited about honestly, to round up a lot of character arcs and setting everything up for the next big thing in canon. With a few canon events sprinkled in a season, for example. Those are my 2 cents. I may be wrong, probably, but wouldn't it be cool? I don't know. Also, animation was pretty cool this time around. They really outdid themselves with the last 2 episodes. It's no Daima obviously, but it was still sweet after all that stiffness, and I hope it continues to get better over time. I'm aware of how animation can be challenging, but come on, it doesn't really live up to its expectations right now. Overall, I'd rank the seasons of Invincible as Season 1 at the top, Season 3 second, and Season 2 at the third. All pretty top notch frankly, but with a few wrinkles that are a little concerning that I hope will be addressed. Invincible wasn't reinvented in all fairness this time around, but it delivered. It's building back up to be as great as it once was, and I hope it lands when it comes back. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you thought of this season, what worked for you, what didn't, what weird little detail stuck with you longer than it should have. If you're into storytelling, music, games, anime, or whatever strange crossroads this channel stands at, there's more coming soon. There should be a video about Cyberpunk right now, something just as grueling as Invincible, but I took a more musical approach that might surprise you. Subscribing 3. Yeah, that kinda just hit me recently. It costs literally nothing to subscribe. You don't even have to put the bell. A channel can just be registered somewhere if you ever tell yourself, I forgot his name, but he did some cool stuff. I wonder what he's up to, you know? And then boom, he's in your subscribed channels, you know, but do put the bell, though. If you're there, it means you enjoyed it, right? Right? For now, though, my hot chocolate is finally perfectly heated up and mixed, so I'll catch you in the next one, hopefully. This has been Invincible Season 3, The Good, the Bad, and the Bland, by the Mayor. See ya, good night, farewell. Boop. Bye.